when a seasoned politician believes they hold all the cards, but their opponent arrives armed with hard numbers on voting history and policy failures. Who goes silent first? Studio lights and C-SPAN lenses sweep across the Senate Banking Committee hearing room. The whispers fade. All eyes lock on Marco Rubio, the Republican senator from Florida, once a presidential contender, leans into the mic. Jaw set, he's poised to strike at Representative Jasmine Crockett. Congresswoman. Rubio begins, voice sharp as a blade. You sit there, representing an inland city, lecturing Florida and other coastal states about insurance policy. You don't understand our unique challenges. This isn't mere technical debate. It's a live broadcast display of power, pressuring a witness, asserting the Senate's advantage, and sending a message beyond the hearing room. Rubio keeps pressing, without easing off. You're promoting federal regulations that will further damage our insurance market. You want to strip states of their autonomy, and you think you know better than those of us who've wrestled with this crisis for years. Chairs shift. Chairman Sherrod Brown leans forward to intervene. Rubio lifts a hand, signaling to continue. The American people need to see this, he says. Measured and deliberate. Democrats like you want a one-size-fits-all solution. It may sound fair, but it will push millions of coastal homeowners into financial risk. The opening salvo is fired. Rubio believes he's out front. Across the table, Jasmine Crockett, composed, organizes packets drawn from public sources. Florida's Office of Insurance Regulation, the ENAC corporate filings. No slogans, just data. Within minutes, either Senate savvy will lock down the tempo of the hearing, or a tidal wave of numbers will flip the script in front of millions watching at home. If you want stories like this, where knowledge and composure go head-to-head with raw power, hit subscribe and join our community at Jasmine Crockett File. We bring you political moments that don't just shock, but inspire. Throughout the exchange, Congresswoman Crockett remained calm, quietly organizing the papers before her. The freshman Democrat from Texas showed no visible reaction to the senator's criticism. What followed, however, would silence the room. Crockett had arrived with detailed research on Florida's collapsing insurance market and on Rubio's own voting record related to disaster relief. Within minutes, she would use hard data to directly counter his claims before millions watching at home. Before continuing, take a second to like and subscribe so you don't miss updates on major political moments shaping Washington. Now, back to the moment when Senator Rubio believed he had the upper hand, unaware that Crockett was about to shift the entire discussion using verifiable facts. Rubio wasn't just any senator questioning a Democratic representative. The 53-year-old Republican from Florida had built much of his reputation on defending his state against federal interference. As a long-serving senator from a hurricane-prone region, he often referenced his experience with disaster recovery to strengthen his credibility. The challenges facing Florida's insurance market, Rubio declared, standing confidently in his tailored suit, require specialized solutions and an understanding of our state's unique conditions, not generic federal mandates from someone representing inland Texas, where hurricane risk is minimal. The hearing had originally aimed to address the national property insurance crisis, but Rubio had turned it into a broader critique of Democratic reform proposals. Committee members were familiar with his polished delivery and firm defense of Florida's autonomy, speeches that had often drawn media attention. Across the room sat Jasmine Crockett, the first-term Democratic representative from Texas's 30th District. At 42, the former civil rights attorney and state legislator had already made her mark as a sharp legal thinker with a commanding presence during hearings. Unlike Rubio, Crockett had spent years representing clients in disputes against insurance companies before being elected to Congress in 2022. The distinguished representative from Texas, Rubio, continued sarcastically, comes from a district that hasn't faced the level of loss we have in Florida, yet she feels qualified to lecture us on how to manage our markets. Crockett remained poised, reviewing her notes on a tablet. Unlike others who had faced Rubio's aggressive questioning, she was well prepared. Her staff had spent weeks compiling data on state-by-state insurance failures, with a particular focus on Florida's situation and Rubio's own record on reform. This hearing was about more than a political disagreement. It was about how the U.S. would confront an escalating crisis impacting millions of homeowners. Rubio argued that insurance regulation should remain under state control with minimal federal involvement, while Crockett pushed for a stronger federal framework to stabilize markets and protect consumers. With tensions rising, Chairman Brown reminded the room that Rubio's allotted time had expired. "I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman," Rubio replied. "But let's remember that some of us actually understand these markets from experience, not from academic theories." His Republican colleagues nodded approvingly, assuming he had ended on a strong note. But Representative Crockett slowly closed her tablet, a small, confident smile crossing her face. This was the moment she had prepared for. "The chair recognizes Representative Crockett," Brown announced, his voice steady over the murmurs in the chamber. Crockett adjusted her microphone and began, her tone calm but assertive. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," she said evenly, "and thank you, Senator Rubio, for your passion. Insurance policy should absolutely inspire strong debate, but passion alone isn't enough. We also need facts." The room grew quiet as Representative Jasmine Crockett opened a thick binder filled with colored tabs and charts. "Senator Rubio has made serious claims about my understanding of insurance challenges," she began, "especially those affecting Florida." Rubio leaned back in his chair, confident. He had heard these kinds of defenses before, standard Democratic arguments that, in his view, never addressed his central points about state autonomy and Florida's distinct situation. "Before I respond to those remarks directly," Crockett continued, "it's important we establish some context. Senator Rubio often references his time representing Florida as giving him special insight into insurance issues. I respect that perspective. I truly do." Several Republican senators exchanged quick glances, sensing a shift in tone. Crockett continued steadily. "But representing a state doesn't automatically mean understanding how failing insurance markets actually operate," she said, her voice firm. "When millions of Americans are dealing with rising premiums or dropped coverage, we need more than opinions. We need verifiable data." Rubio's posture stiffened. This was not the line of defense he had anticipated. "Senator Rubio mentioned Florida's unique insurance problems," Crockett went on. "He's absolutely right about that. In preparing for this hearing, my team reviewed Florida's insurance market over the past 5 years, tracking premium increases, company bankruptcies, and policy cancellations." Rubio's expression tightened. The topic was politically sensitive in Florida, where multiple insurers had gone under and rates had soared. "We compared these numbers to other coastal states with similar hurricane exposure," Crockett explained, handing a packet to the committee clerk for distribution. The findings were alarming. As senators reviewed the pages, quiet murmurs spread through the room. Rubio leaned toward a colleague, whispering, his concern visible. A Democratic senator was overheard saying, "These numbers can't be accurate." "Point of order." "Mr. Chairman," Rubio interjected, "I object to this ambush with undisclosed materials. The Congresswoman should have submitted these documents in advance if she intended to discuss Florida in detail." Chairman Sherrod Brown frowned slightly. The witness may reference any publicly available data in her testimony. Crockett nodded. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to clarify, all information in this report comes from the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and industry filings with the SEC. Every source is public and pertains directly to a public issue, one affecting Senator Rubio's own constituents. Rubio's expression darkened as Crockett continued. Now, colleagues, please turn to page 3, she said, her tone confident. According to Florida's official data, the average homeowner's insurance premium in the state has risen 102% in just 3 years, almost triple the rate of increase seen in other Gulf Coast states with similar storm risks. Gasps rippled through the room. A Republican senator leaned toward Rubio, whispering rapidly. The report goes further. Crockett said, over the past 4 years, 15 insurance companies in Florida have become insolvent or exited the market entirely. As a result, more than 1.2 million homeowners have lost coverage or been forced into the state-backed Citizens Property Insurance Corporation. Cameras caught Rubio's growing unease as murmurs filled the hearing room. He scribbled notes, clearly preparing his counterpoints. I'm not presenting this to criticize Floridians, Crockett clarified. Insurance instability affects Americans across the country, coastal and inland. That's the point. This isn't a partisan issue. It's a market failure that needs comprehensive solutions. As she went on, Democratic members leaned forward while some Republicans shifted uncomfortably. What's especially notable, Crockett continued, is on page 5. Citizens Insurance, the state's insurer of last resort, now holds over 1.4 million policies, an increase of more than 300% in 4 years. It has become Florida's largest property insurer, the very outcome Senator Rubio has repeatedly warned about. Point of order. Mr. Chairman, Rubio interjected again. The witness is citing numbers without addressing the full context of litigation and storm patterns. I'm quoting directly from Florida's Insurance Commissioner's report, Crockett replied calmly, raising the document. If you'd like to discuss those additional factors, they're summarized on page 7. Chairman Brown cleared his throat. The witness may proceed. Crockett turned another page. What's most concerning is this. Florida homeowners now pay the highest insurance premiums in the nation, an average of $6,000 per year compared to the national average of about $2,100. And this occurred despite Florida going 16 years without a major hurricane strike before 2017. Rubio's face had grown pale as Crockett continued her careful, data-driven testimony, but she was far from finished. The witness's time has expired, Chairman Brown finally announced, though somewhat reluctantly. I have additional material to share. Mr. Chairman, Crockett said respectfully. Perhaps during the questioning period. The chair recognizes Senator Rubio for a response, Brown replied, noting the senator's visible frustration. Rubio leaned forward. The Congresswoman has presented a selective picture of Florida's insurance landscape, he began, his voice taut. She neglects to mention that much of this crisis stems from excessive litigation, fraud, and the state's unique geography. Federal intervention will only worsen these issues. But Crockett had anticipated that. As Rubio spoke, she handed another set of documents to the clerk, data comparing other states' successful insurance reforms. Parliamentary inquiry. Mr. Chairman, Crockett said immediately after Rubio finished. May I respond to direct claims about my understanding of this subject, Chairman Brown, aware that C-SPAN's audience had likely grown during the exchange. Nodded. The witness is recognized for 5 minutes. The room fell silent as Jasmine Crockett stood composed and self-assured. Her years as a courtroom attorney were evident in her steady posture and controlled tone. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," Crockett began. "Senator Rubio says I've presented a selective picture of Florida's problems. Let's widen the view." She motioned toward the new packet being distributed. This second handout compares insurance reforms in states with similar coastal exposure and the results they produced. Rubio flipped through the pages, his discomfort growing. "Senator Rubio has suggested Florida's situation is unique and that federal fixes would make things worse," Crockett continued. "That claim deserves scrutiny. The data tells a different story. On page 2, you'll see how Louisiana, South Carolina, and Alabama, each exposed to hurricanes, adopted targeted reforms that stabilized their markets." The room quieted as members read. After Katrina, Louisiana combined stronger building codes, mitigation incentives, and a state-backed stopgap coordinated with federal support. The result, premium increases of roughly 12% over 3 years, compared with Florida's 102%. She added, "South Carolina implemented a mediation system for claims that cut litigation by 60% while preserving consumer protections." Cameras caught Rubio's expression, surprise turning to frustration. "But the most revealing material is on page 4, Crockett said, voice firm. It documents Senator Rubio's voting record on insurance reform and disaster mitigation funding. While he publicly highlights Florida's crisis, he has voted against key federal measures over the past decade that would have supported state insurance markets." She faced Rubio directly. "This includes votes against reauthorizing the National Flood Insurance Program, against increases in FEMA pre-disaster mitigation funding, and against the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, bills that would have helped Florida homeowners and insurers manage risk." Then Crockett delivered a sharper point. "What's especially troubling is that while premiums in Miami, Tampa, and Orlando have tripled for many families, Senator Rubio has received over $2.3 million in campaign contributions from the insurance industry, placing him among the top recipients in the Senate." She held up printed campaign finance records. "These are public disclosures, not partisan claims." Murmurs spread through the committee as Crockett worked through Rubio's record with methodical precision. Each documented vote and citation landed clearly. "The question isn't whether Florida faces unique challenges. Of course it does," she said. "The question is why Senator Rubio has opposed proven solutions adopted in other coastal states and offered no viable alternatives for his constituents." Crockett continued, pointing to page 7. Here's a quote from Florida's former insurance consumer advocate. "This crisis is the result of years of policy choices prioritizing industry profits over market stability and consumer protection." That assessment preceded Senator Rubio's vote against the Climate Risk Disclosure Act, which would have required insurers to disclose their climate exposure. "That's not my reading." "Senator," she added, "that's your state's expert." Rubio, visibly agitated, scribbled notes and conferred with an aide. "Point of order." "Mr. Chairman," he interrupted. "The witness is mischaracterizing my record and ignoring that those bills contained unrelated provisions." Brown interjected to restore order, following standard procedure. Crockett quickly resumed. "If Senator Rubio wants to discuss the details of these bills," she said evenly, "I'm open to that." She lifted a document. On page 9, you'll find each piece of legislation, its specific provisions related to insurance markets, and how those measures would have benefited Florida homeowners. Turning toward the full committee, she continued, "This isn't about assigning blame or claiming perfection. It's about acknowledging what works and what doesn't in our insurance systems. Families are losing their homes or going bankrupt trying to insure them." Looking directly into the C-SPAN camera, Crockett concluded, "Floridians deserve policies guided by data, not ideology. They need a senator committed to proven solutions that stabilize insurance markets, not one who repeatedly votes against assistance while offering no viable alternatives. The insurance crisis doesn't respond to politics. It responds to effective action. The room fell silent as Crockett yielded back her time. The expressions around the table made the impact clear. Rubio's long-standing position had just been dismantled using verified data from his own state and voting record. In under 10 minutes, Rubio's standing on insurance policy, vital in a hurricane-prone state, took a visible hit. By evening, clipped exchanges ricocheted across social platforms. The hashtag Florida Insurance Crisis trended alongside screenshots of spreadsheets and source citations. What we saw today was preparation meeting opportunity, observed CNN analyst Gloria Borger. Representative Crockett didn't just dispute Senator Rubio, she dismantled his argument with verified data pulled from his own record. A still of Rubio's startled expression, captured as Crockett referenced insurance industry donations, morphed into a meme. When your donor list catches up to you, conservative outlets moved quickly to shore up Rubio's case. He has consistently supported state-based solutions, a Fox News commentator argued, framing his voting history as a principled skepticism of federal overreach. But that defense wobbled when the Tampa Bay Times released a deep dive. Florida's insurance collapse, how we got here, which corroborated Crockett's statistics and noted that state-only fixes had not stabilized the market. While we've often supported Senator Rubio, the editorial board wrote, his portrayal of the crisis as primarily a litigation issue doesn't square with the evidence. For families staring down $10,000 premiums, or no coverage at all, ideology offers little comfort. The political fallout was immediate. Rubio, long cast as Florida's guardian on disaster readiness, fielded tougher questions from reporters and constituents. His office accused Crockett of cherry-picking figures. Local journalists fact-checked and repeatedly landed on the same conclusion. The data matched public records. Senator Rubio declined our request for comment, reported WFLA Tampa, but we independently verified Representative Crockett's numbers against the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation and Senate filings. Crockett's profile, meanwhile, surged. National outlets booked interviews. Her following tripled within 48 hours. Consumer advocates praised her command of the brief, and Florida homeowners began citing her packet in petitions for state reform. This wasn't political theater, a CNBC analyst said. It was a blueprint for how to argue policy. Start with verifiable sources. Walk the committee through them, and tie every figure to lived consequences. The ripple effects reached Capitol Hill. Colleagues who once nodded through familiar talking points started arriving at hearings with their own state-specific binders. Loss ratios, insolvency counts, premium trends, reinsurance stress tests. The expectation of receipts replaced the comfort of rhetoric. For Rubio, the damage lingered. Florida papers rolled out explainers and investigations, probing the delta between his speeches and his votes. Marco Rubio came to Washington pledging to protect Florida's interests, wrote the Orlando Sentinel. 12 years on, premiums have tripled and carriers keep exiting. When do results, not rhetoric, become the measure political antennae twitched? Within weeks, a former Florida insurance commissioner launched an exploratory committee, promising real solutions, not posturing. For Crockett, the hearing was a hinge moment, shifting her from freshman lawmaker to a national voice on insurance risk and disaster policy. Her method? Fact first. Source forward, consequence driven, became a template for newer members looking to convert committee time into impact. The point wasn't just exposing inconsistencies. She later told CBS, It was connecting policy design to the bills people can or can't pay. This isn't abstract. It's a financial emergency for families across coastal states. The Rubio Crockett exchange soon entered comms curricula as a case study in oversight, done well. Ask precise questions, cite public data, anticipate counterclaims, and keep the focus on policy outcomes. What began as a routine hearing segment reframed a national debate: insurance, climate risk, consumer protection, and reshaped both lawmakers' political trajectories. Heading into the 2024 cycle, analysts pointed to the moment as proof that preparation plus data can puncture the sheen of rehearsed confidence. The lesson was crisp: in complicated policy fights, substance still beats style. The broader legacy landed beyond personalities. As climate risk tightened its grip on coastal markets, the center of gravity moved toward what works: tougher codes, transparent pricing of risk, targeted federal backstops, smarter mitigation. A consumer advocate put it plainly: when a crisis hits, effective policy, not ideology, is what matters. Share your take in the comments. I'm eager to hear what resonates with our audience. If you're finding value here, please like, share, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next story. Before you go, check the featured video on your screen. That's a piece I'm especially proud of. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time. Jasmine Crockett File.